Okay, welcome everyone to today's Google Webmaster Central Office Hours Hangouts. My name is John Mueller. I'm a Webmaster Trends Analyst at Google Switzerland, and I'm here to help you guys with any web search, webmaster-related questions you might have about Google and everything that's kind of associated with that. As always, does one of you want to get started and ask a first question before we start with the Q&A?
Is it true that we have to verify all websites in order to get all the backlinks?
To get the information about the backlinks, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
they still count, they're still there, but in Webmaster Tools we show it per, I believe, per host name and per protocol. So if you have some links to the www version, some links to the non-www version, then that's something you might want to verify separately so that you have that information all together.
So I can get all the backlinks just from verifying one website. If I want to get all, the exact amount of backlinks, I need to verify a couple websites, right, in order to get all the data.
So we do this by the URL we have it indexed by. And if you have your website consistently indexed with one version of the host name and protocol, then we'd show all of the information there. But if some URLs are indexed with www, some without www, then that's something we kind of keep track of separately. And we'd show you the links, the crawl errors, those kind of things separately for those different parts of your site or different variations of the same content.
Okay, thank you.
So if you have things like canonicalization set up properly, the rel canonical 301 redirects all to one version, then that's what we're going to focus on. But if you don't have it set up like that, then maybe we'll have some in one version, some in the other version.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have this question by Barry Schwartz. When is Penguin 3 launching? I don't really have anything new to announce at this point, so I can't really tell you anything special, Barry. Sorry. But I'm sure you'll hear from us or from the general webmaster community when things change. I get different site links when changing the browser. Does Google personalize site links? If yes, what's the effect Google site links is personalizing? As far as I know, site links aren't personalized, but they are generally set up in a way that they're different per language. So if you have one browser set to English or your Google cookie set to English and you open an incognito window that, I don't know, has a different language by default, then that's something where you'd see a difference in the site links. Because if you're searching for your company name and your whole settings are set for Germany, then we'd probably show you different information than if we see your settings are set to English. So I don't know if that's the effect that you're seeing there. That seems like it might be what you're actually doing. Barry asks, if you're watching live, you can't submit questions via the Q&A. I thought you can. No? Oh, well. Okay.
And we can see you as well.
What?
You can't see you. No. We can only see Googlebot.
I can see John.
Now we can see.
Fine, John.
Okay. I was just about to make a funny face. But if you guys can see me, that's probably not the best thing. Okay.
Hey, John, I had a question.
Okay.
So I was talking to Matt Cutts out at SMX West, and I posed a question to him that he was intrigued by. If you have a franchise or dealer network like Pizza Hut, and they are primarily concerned in geo-related terms, the duplicate content issue kicks in, and we've tested this. We had a grouping of sites that had 235 top-level domains. So these are not sitting on a manufacturer subdirectory or such. My question to him is if that company has figured out exactly what would represent their brand very well, would convert very well, why would they be forced to have to create false stuff on a page to get around the duplicate content issue? Shouldn't the team be able to see that when a geo-qualified query is put in place, that the duplicate issue should not play. So if I look for a pizza in Sarasota, Florida, and I look for pizza in Fort Wayne, Indiana, shouldn't you guys be able to figure out that it doesn't matter that the content is different on each page, or the content is the same on both pages, because it is absolutely relevant for that market? And I can tell you what Matt said, but I'm interested if that ever made it to the team.
Okay. It'd be interesting to kind of see what's exactly happening there. So if you have specific URLs that you can send me, that would be useful. But in general, there are two places where we filter duplicate content, and depending on how much of the content is different on these pages and how much is kind of the same, or the way the website as a whole is structured, the network of sites is structured, might fall into one or the other category. So the first thing we do is when we index these pages, when we crawl them and see that they're exactly the same, or it looks like these are essentially exactly the same pages, we might fold them together into one URL and index them like that. If we can tell that they're actually different pages, that these are essentially meant to be indexed separately, even if there's only like the location or the phone number or something like that has changed on these pages, then we'll try to index them separately. And at the time of the search results, when someone searches for something, we'll try to filter there. So if someone is searching just for pizza, we'll pick one of these pages that are probably essentially all generic for that term. If someone is searching for pizza and a specific phone number or a specific location, we'll try to find the page that's matching most specifically within this group of pages and just show that one and filter the other ones out. So
yeah,
essentially,
go ahead.
We should be probably catching these a little bit better so that we're indexing them separately, but it sounds like you're saying we're indexing them as one page and kind of dropping them way in the beginning.
Yeah, so we had a test where we did this across 235 top-level domains. That we had moved them from a directory listing style, which was obviously performing very poorly because of thin content, and it wasn't relevant to the market when basically it was just a couple of terms on the page. So we moved them to 235 unique top-level domains. We let that go for a while. Some of the pages performed okay for geo-targeted queries, but the rest of them would not, because they were indexed, but they were back 100 page or 100 listings SERP results back. When we deduped the content to around 30 to 40%, which we would have rather not had to do because the message was exactly what the client wanted, and we put some variability onto the page that was outside of just geo keyword and the company brand name, those kind of standard variables, then all of a sudden they start to rank very highly. And so the quandary there is, as I said to Matt, is we're not trying to trick you guys. We want to give you exactly, in other words, Matt had said, well, why don't you just put like one piece of content on that front page, like who the general manager is of each location. And I said, so basically what you're telling me is you want me to present something different to you guys that we haven't found to convert better, because you need that so that you can discover this. So anyway, he took it down, and I wondered if that made it to the team, if you guys are working anything more on that, or if you can help us try to stay above board with you guys, because we don't want to have to write, in the case of an upcoming one, we're going to have to write 200 or 2,000 different pieces of content.
Yeah, I probably need to look at the specifics there. I know this is something that the team is always working on. Finding ways to kind of filter them at the right time is always a kind of a tricky thing. And at the same time, it's tricky sometimes in that some of these cases start to look like doorway pages, where essentially it looks like for example, if you have an online service and you essentially just want to advertise that to all of the cities in the neighborhood, you create separate domain names for your online service and then the cityname.com, and all of those pages are essentially the same, and we need to kind of treat them as one page instead of as all of these separate pages. So it's tricky to find the right balance there. So that's something where I'd love to kind of look at the specifics and see the real problem that you're seeing there, so that we can discuss the current issue with the team.
I would love.
They're looking for examples. They'd love to see what's happening, where they're getting it right, where they're getting it wrong.
Right. We just want to make sure that the end client, as you guys say that you want to do, when somebody is searching in Sarasota, Florida, they don't want a corporate page to come up. They want something that has local relevance and local context. And we're trying to provide that, and we're actually doing quite well for it. But there's a lot of labor-intensive. It's very labor-intensive to do that because your algorithms are not picking up when we only want it to be geolocated.
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk more about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, feel free to send me the information in maybe a private Google Plus thread, and I can see what we can do there.
Are you not using Google Maps for each location, though?
Yeah, we use all of the IYP and so forth, but we're not just talking about showing up well in the Google local. We also want them to show up very well for organic local listings. Because obviously there's a lot of variability in the map pack and the 3-pack and the 7-pack, etc. And that business should score well when a geo located term is used.
All right.
Yeah, I'd love to look at the examples so we can take that to the team.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Thanks. All right, more from the questions here. The marked as fixed option in Webmaster Tools hides the specified URL errors, but does it have any effect on crawling or indexing? No, this is actually only for the UI, only to make it easier for you to kind of go through your crawl errors. So it doesn't change anything for crawling and indexing. It doesn't recrawl the URLs. It doesn't kind of change the error status. It's really only in the Webmaster Tools UI. How important is private public whois information as a ranking signal, especially in a spammy niche such as casinos, pharmaceuticals, payday loans? We don't take that into account at all, as far as I know. So this is essentially something up to you. If you want to hide your whois information, you can do that. If you want to make it public, that's fine as well. That's not something we'd look at as a ranking signal. In case your domain is penalized by an algorithm and you've done all the possible adjustments to make it good, but your website is still demoted after many months, is then moving to a new domain to make a fresh new start a reasonable solution? Sometimes. Sometimes that can make sense. Sometimes it's worth kind of working on your old domain. It really depends on your situation, and not something where I'd say there is a specific time frame you should wait for, or a specific kind of set of changes that you need to make. It's really up to you, because also the effort involved in moving to a new domain or starting fresh on a new domain is essentially personalized. It's not something where we would know how much is involved in doing that kind of a change. So this is more of a business and a marketing decision that you have to make at some point. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it makes sense to kind of hold on to the old domain and maybe find a different solution. Just Saturday, I get quite a lot of complaints about the Google Dance. Do you have any comment about this, whether Google is testing Penguin 3.0? At the moment, I don't have anything special to announce. I know that engineers are always working on improving search, so it's normal to always see some changes in search, but it's not something specific that we have to announce at the moment.
890 changes, right?
We make a lot of changes, yeah. I mean, it's hard to quantify that because there are so many also shared systems and algorithms at Google that you can't really say this is just specific to search and it doesn't affect anything else, or this is just specific to, I don't know, Google Drive and not used anywhere else. So we make a lot of changes. We have a lot of engineers working on search to keep things moving forward. Manual action revoked for unnatural incoming links site-wide. The rankings are still low. If we create a new site without 301 redirecting, can we use the old content? Is the content penalized as well? Essentially, if you set up a new website and you don't redirect, then that's something we try to see as a separate website. If the new website looks exactly the same as the old website, then it starts to look to us like you're just moving to a different domain, but you forgot to set up the redirect. So that's something where, from a technical point of view, if it looks like you're just kind of getting canonicalization wrong, we'll say, oh, well, we'd like to help you with this and treat it as one website, which would also involve forwarding those kind of spammy signals there. So as much as possible, I'd recommend, if you're going to go to a different domain because of problems that you have with your old one, really set up a new website so that we don't see that as one website and try to forward everything there. We uploaded a blog by mistake to the wrong site, which has been indexed. What's the best way to transfer the content to the correct site without risking duplication? Shall we simply remove the one and add to the other, or do we need to do a 301 redirect? It kind of depends on the website and what you did there exactly. If you just uploaded it to the wrong domain and you fixed it a little bit later, then chances are you can just delete the old one that you uploaded incorrectly and put the new one up. If you've left it like this for a while, then I definitely set up redirects so that we can kind of forward all of those signals to the preferred version that you do want to have indexed. But even without redirects, we'll probably figure this out if it was changed within a reasonable time after your initial upload. Google announced that HTTPS is a ranking signal, a lightweight signal for the moment. Does SSL on the checkout page, is that enough for the intention to make all site pages HTTPS? What's the best practice? Essentially, we see this on a per-page basis. So when we do the rankings, we look to see if it's indexed as HTTPS and treat it appropriately. So if you're just putting this on those checkout pages, then those would be the pages that we'd treat like this in the search results. So from that point of view, our recommendation would be really to move the whole site to HTTPS if you can. I realize it's easier said than done, and for some sites it's very involved to actually move everything to HTTPS. So this is, like you mentioned, a very lightweight signal at the moment. It's not something where we'd say you need to do this immediately, otherwise your site will disappear from the internet. It's a recommendation that we have, but you can do that step by step whenever you have time.
Sean, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So HTTPS, so a lot of people obviously do the migration. Some URLs, say secure, but there's some mismatch content errors and stuff like that. Obviously, you have to be secure. You validate that the site actually has a valid certificate. You validate that the page is secure. But do you also validate that there are mismatch errors on there? I mean, how far along do you go where it's not getting that tiny ranking boost?
At the moment, we look at just if the URL is indexed as HTTPS or not. We do use the kind of the mismatch, the content mismatch issues to determine canonicalization. So if you have the same content on both HTTP and HTTPS, and you don't have a redirect set up in either way, and we can tell that the HTTPS version isn't perfect in that you kind of have like these cross-site issues with HTTP, HTTPS, then we'll kind of fall towards the HTTP version for canonicalization. But if you set up a redirect, then we'll probably just follow that redirect and index it as HTTPS.
But even if that has mismatch errors, it will still get that ranking boost?
Even if it has some mismatch errors at the moment, yes. It's possible that that'll change at some point. It's also possible that maybe we'll be a little bit stricter with regards to which certificates kind of work for this, in the sense that if you have a really old certificate with a lower bit count key, then that's something that we might say, well, it's not really secure. We should probably treat it a little bit differently. But I think, at least for the current time, for the mid-run, it's probably just going to remain focused on the HTTPS part. I think that's a really big step that a lot of sites still have to make. So it's something where we don't want to further complicate things unnecessarily.
All right, thanks.
And do shopping comparison sites have a low priority as the content is largely aggregated from different sites? It's not the case that we treat kind of these shopping comparison sites differently at any rate. It's more the case that we just don't find that much useful and compelling content on a lot of these sites. So it's not that by definition we'd say these are bad sites, but it's just a lot of sites take a bunch of feeds and compare them and publish them one-to-one, which is essentially auto-generated content. Nothing unique and valuable is added there. So that's kind of what I'd focus on there, not the type of site, but rather just making sure that regardless of the type of site you really have significant, unique and compelling content of your own in there. I'm moving from mysite.com page HTML to mysite.com/page without the .html. As I'm moving to WordPress, will a 301 redirect be enough for the rankings to flow through? Yes, a redirect would definitely be the right thing to do there. There's a tiny amount of PageRank that's kind of lost with a redirect, but if you set up these redirects, that'll essentially forward all the signals, or most of the signals that we had from the old page to the new page. Not having .html at the end is fine. You can have .html there as well. It's not that we have any preference either way. Sometimes you can also set up a new CMS when you move to it to use the exact URLs as you had before. So I'm sure you could set up WordPress to have .html at the end if you wanted to. And if you can do that, then that's something I generally prefer doing. Then that way you don't have any of these problems associated with a move to different URLs within your website where we have to recrawl everything, re-index everything, re-understand the site structure, the way the links are between the pages. We can essentially, if you keep the same URLs, we can just keep running the way that we have your site now.
John?
Yes?
Can you just expand upon what the thinking is behind losing any rank at all for a 301? If the site owner is aware and conscious that, okay, I'm moving here, telling everyone by doing the right code that it's moving here, Google picks it up as it's moved here, what's the thinking behind any loss at all?
I'd have to double check to look at it. I'm not sure offhand what we had there. I know we had some spam issues where sites would essentially play like the 301 game and just cycle things around. And for those kind of issues, it can make sense to kind of treat them more like a very strong link rather than taking everything one-to-one and forwarding it on. So I know that's something that used to be a problem. I'm not sure if that's the complete answer to your question there.
That it's moving here, Google picks it up as it's moved here. What's the thinking behind any loss at all?
Oops, someone has an echo. I'd have to. Yeah, so it's. I'd have to double check for the complete answer there.
Okay, thanks. Do you think it's negligible though? That.
Yeah. I mean, for normal moves, it's not something where you'd see that in any way. Usually, it's also one of the reasons why we recommend telling people to update their links if they have links to the old versions as well. So that's kind of just to kind of keep things sanitized and keep things moving forward. But it's not something where I'd say you'd see any noticeable drop in the search results by doing this once or twice. Of course, if you're doing like a row of these and cycling through a bunch of domains, and that's something where you'll probably see kind of a small or visible drop. But if you're just moving from one domain to another, it's technically there, it's worth mentioning, but it's not something where you'd really have to worry about that.
Okay.
Hello, John.
Hi.
Hello. Can I make you a question?
Sure.
Some time ago, in a previous Hangout, we talked about how a good amount of good and natural backlinks are not the only factor to achieve a top 10 position in very competitive queries, in example. We work on a car hire website and started with a brand new domain 3 years ago or so. But you talk about doing something remarkable. and different than the other websites to be on this top 10 position. Now we are doing that. We are working on very good content with a little bit of insider information, useful for the traveler. We are creating all of this, especially here in Spain, for this kind of content. But this content is not obtaining very good positions. And I'd like to ask you, how much time does it take to have all the backlink power, you know, or the recognition for Google for this new content on the overall website to have a very good position? I think it deserves with the backlinks we have and the content we are creating.
It's really hard to say. I don't think there's any specific time frame where I'd say after this time you should see these changes. From a technical point of view, it can take quite some time to crawl and index all of this new content, which could be, depending on the size of your website, an order of weeks or a couple of months. In addition, what you'll see is the quality algorithms have to kind of understand the new signals about your website, the way you're writing, the content you have there. That's something where I imagine, I don't know, I'm pulling a number out of my head, maybe a month or two as well there, and then we have to update those algorithms. So if you're making significant kind of content changes on your website and your website is of a reasonable size, I guess maybe around a half a year or so for you to kind of see those changes visible in search. So it's not something you'd see from one day to the next, also not within weeks. It's more of a matter of months.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's something we see. It's when it's a very competitive field, as the field we're working, the time is very slow, and we are a little bit a startup, and we get crazy with this because we want things faster. But we understand a lot the quality and the responsibility of Google to bring only good websites on top 10. And
yeah, it's really tricky when you're going from a I don't remember your website in detail, but when you're going from a website that's kind of iffy from the quality to something that's really good, it's really something where our algorithms are sometimes a bit reluctant in saying, okay, well, this page is good, therefore the whole website must be good as well. We kind of need a strong confirmation from various signals to really trust that information and say, well, this whole website changed significantly. We should treat it very differently in search going forward. So that's something that just takes quite a bit of time.
Thank you very much, John.
All right. A client site has multiple backlinks from article farms, but ranks well for many terms. Should I remove them as a rule? And will this improve the search results further or still hinder the already good results? That's a good question. So essentially, kind of what you're asking there is, I'm going to assume that these article farm links are kind of unnatural links that you placed there or that you had someone place in their articles. And if that's the case, essentially what you're asking is a new client comes to you and has a lot of unnatural backlinks. Should you be proactive and clean that up, or should you kind of leave them there and hope Google doesn't notice? And from my point of view, the answer is obviously cleaning that up is always a good idea so that you don't have any potential issues going forward. So maybe they haven't been picked up manually from a web spam team, but if you leave them there, that's always kind of a potential risk that you run into going forward with a site like that. Or maybe the algorithms will pick that up and say, well, these are all bad links, and I don't know how to treat the rest of the links, so maybe we should be careful with this site. On the other hand, if these are essentially just random links that happen to be on article farms, but these aren't things that you placed unnaturally or that you had some SEO place for this website, then that's something where you can kind of make a judgment call there and say, these are kind of okay, these are not too problematic, or these are just things I don't want to be associated with, and I don't want to run the risk of them being seen as being unnatural, and we'll just disavow them maybe on our domain level to kind of make things a bit easier. So essentially, if you know that there are unnatural backlinks, I definitely clean that up going forward and be proactive about that. If you're not sure about that, then that's kind of a judgment call you can make. With the disavow tool, you have the ability to kind of clean that up without actually changing those sites. So that might be a possibility there. But that's more something where you kind of have to make a judgment call, as you often do with a client who comes to you with issues that they might not tell you about completely.
John, can I ask you about Webmaster Tools?
Sure.
So if I, for instance, let's say there's a product, a brand that has, like they sell speakers, right? And then at the same time, they have a different, they have another speaker, that's called blah, blah, blah. But they don't want to make this page, they don't want to add it to the website because it's a whole different, again, it's a whole different product that people know it as like a different website. Is it okay to add it in the same account, in the same Webmaster Tools account for this the speaker brand?
Sure. I don't see any problem with that. The Webmaster Tools is essentially mostly a technical tool that makes it easy for you to spot these issues. It's not something where we'd say you have to kind of sort them out by logical groups or anything like that. So that's essentially a tool for you to use, and how you use that, how you split those sites into different accounts is up to you.
Okay. No, it's just for the data to flow because different people, want their business places separated, separated. Yeah.
That's essentially up to you. You can do that either way.
Thank you.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, most people think that Panda is strictly an on-site algorithm, that if you're hit by Panda, all you have to worry about is your own site. I was wondering, how much do we have to worry about bad links or bad references in relation to Google's quality algorithms? And if we have to worry about that, will a disavow file help, or should we be deleting?
Panda is essentially a quality algorithm that looks at the content on your site. So it's not something where we take links into account at all. So that's not something where I'd even worry about the disavow file there. Usually we also try to keep these algorithms separate in the sense that they're not interacting. So if, for instance, Panda were to take some of the same signals as Penguin, then that would kind of make it harder to debug on our side what exactly is happening with the website with specific signals. So as much as possible, we try to kind of separate these so that you're really only looking at effects from one specific algorithm. So that's not something where you'd need to disavow. If you see problematic links, of course you can clean that up, but it's not something where the Panda or the quality algorithm would be looking at these links.
Right, it's not going to help with Panda. What about internal links? Say it was a tactic in 2008 or so that people would go into their blog and they would link every exact match query to an internal page because they thought that would somehow boost their ranking, or maybe it did back then. Is this a quality issue that we should be looking at?
By itself, it's not a matter of like the page rank being passed or like specific anchors being used, but the way you internally link your website can, of course, affect how the quality of your website is perceived. So if every second word on your website is underlined and links to a specific topic or a tag page, then that's something that makes it really hard to kind of read this page and to kind of understand it appropriately. And it makes it look kind of like low quality or almost like spammy type page. So that's something where it's not the matter that these links are there or that they're passing PageRank or not. It used to be that people would no-follow all of the internal links to kind of hoard the PageRank on specific pages. So that's not so much of a problem from a technical side, but from a practical side, it can make the page look a little bit lower quality or higher quality depending on how the internal structure is set up. And the same applies to the template of the site, to the way that you kind of design your website. All of these things kind of add up, and in the end can give the impression that this is a really high-quality site, or it looks kind of like low quality. The webmaster didn't really care about this website. They just installed a bunch of plugins to kind of link every other word, those kind of things.
Right. Okay, thanks, John, very much.
All right, site is a gov site, went from position 2 to 21 overnight and has stayed there for over 6 months, 0 movement up or down. The site that replaced it is name.com, but spam, no webmaster penalty. Another penalty, what would you do? Should I give you a site? It'd be interesting to look at the site, yes. I mean, there can be lots of different reasons for changes like this, where maybe the overall quality of the website looks kind of bad and is more problematic. Even if it's a official government site, doesn't necessarily make it the best website of its kind or the best website to return for these kind of queries. So I wouldn't focus so much on the fact that it's a government website, but rather just look at it like you would any other website and see what you can do to make sure that everything is working the best it can work there. So that's something where I kind of take a step back and look at the site overall rather than focus on specifics like this is a gov site, another one is kind of spammy, but rather focus on your website and see what you can do to improve it there. If a site has too many pages, too many duplicate pages in the millions, moving those pages into subdomains based on category and blocking them helps SEO. For example, books.xyz.com blocked, mobiles.xyz.com allowed with original content. Does this still hurt the main domain? Essentially, I'm not so sure what you mean about duplicate pages. If they're really duplicate in the sense that they're one-to-one copies, then we'll generally figure that out and just ignore those pages. If these are essentially pages that are auto-generated and look almost exactly the same, maybe search results pages, maybe aggregated content, then that's something that will look bad regardless of where you put it and regardless of whether or not you have it blocked by robots text. So, of course, content behind robots.txt, we wouldn't be able to crawl and index like that. We'd index it by the URL, but it still kind of looks bad. So what I do there, if it's really a case that these pages are kind of low-quality aggregated content, is try to no-index them as much as possible so that they really fall out completely. Maybe even remove them completely from your website so that even users don't run across them. Because if you think that these are kind of low-quality duplicate pages, then maybe your users will feel the same way. With regards to just moving them to a subdomain, our quality algorithm does look at the site overall. And if it looks like these subdomains are essentially part of the main website, we'll treat the whole thing as one website. And if it looks like the overall quality of your whole website is fairly low, then we'll treat the pages on your site appropriately. So that's not something where I just shuffle those URLs around on the website. I'd really try to find a more permanent solution for this kind of low-quality content, assuming it is low-quality content that's just like aggregated and looks very similar, very duplicative. If this is content that is essentially really one-to-one copies, then that's something, maybe it's worth blocking them in the robots.txt. Maybe it's worth really finding a way to kind of prevent these duplicative URLs from even being discovered. Any way to download search query data via Google Spreadsheets? I think we recently had a problem there that the download via spreadsheets was stuck, or that it basically just did a download in the browser. But essentially, if you download that data as a CSV file, you can also just drag and drop it into Google Drive, and then you'll have it as a Google Spreadsheet file again. So that's something you could do there. Since you mentioned API, one thing that we do have is a kind of a Python script that downloads the search query data, I believe, as well, which you could use to kind of automate this process. So if you wanted to pick up your search query data on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, then that Python script should work. That Python script, I believe, is on one of our older blog posts, maybe 2 or 3 years back. I have a .NET site with a WordPress blog and a subdirectory with PHP. Does having these 2 sites in different coding languages under one domain affect the ranking of my website? The WordPress site, for example, lives under the URL mydomain.com/blog/title. No. Having different programming languages on your site isn't something that would affect your site's ranking. That's not something we'd even take into account. So it's not the case that we'd say, oh, .NET is good or .NET is bad, and we'll rank it higher or lower. If you have a mixture, it'll be bad. Essentially, this is a technical issue up to you. You can create your site in whatever methods you want, and provided we can crawl and index those pages separately, that we can follow the links through your site, then we'll try to index it like that. It doesn't really matter what the technical infrastructure behind that is. One thing to keep in mind, though, is if you're moving from something like static HTML pages to a PHP site, if you change the URLs of your site to kind of go from .htm to .php, then we'll see those as separate URLs. So you should set up a 301 redirect for those URLs. If you can keep the same URLs within your website, then that makes it a lot easier. But if you just have different parts of your site on different CMSs, then that's up to you. That's perfectly fine. Follow up to the .gov website question. The question is more if there can be a manual placement to my website at 21, as it's been there and not moved for all the months. No, we don't have any kind of a manual penalty that moves sites to a specific location. And if there were a manual penalty in place, then you would see that in Webmaster Tools, definitely. So if you don't see anything in the web spam section in Webmaster Tools, then your site is essentially just ranking naturally at that position, and it's not something that's unnaturally being held back or tied to that specific ranking. How soon is a domain that appears in Webmaster Tools used as a ranking signal? Essentially at the same time. So if we see a new domain that's maybe linking to a website or a new domain that we pick up for crawling and indexing, as soon as we index it, we'll forward that information to the Webmaster Tools team, and they'll use that in their data. So essentially, the kind of the web search side happens almost a little bit earlier before you see that in Webmaster Tools. Sometimes that's a day ahead of time. Sometimes the Webmaster Tools data is just updated every couple of days or once a week, so you might see a small delay there. But essentially, as soon as it's visible in Webmaster Tools, it will at least have been seen by the web search site as well, and can be potentially be used in ranking there. 3 days after Googlebot requested many 410 gone resources, some of them are still indexed. How many days does Google need to de-index the resources after the discovery of their 410 status? We don't actually have any fixed timeline for that. And sometimes it can take a little bit longer. Sometimes it's a little bit faster. Essentially, the main difference we have there is with a 404 versus a 410. A 404 is just not found. A 404 we'll generally treat as being more of a temporary error traditionally. So we've seen a lot of pages go to a 404 result code and then flip back to normal 200 result code, showing content again. So we kind of a bit more cautious with the 404s, in that we'll recrawl the pages maybe a few times to actually confirm that it's really a 404 and then drop it out of the index. Whereas with a 410, we'll probably just crawl them once or maximum twice and say, OK, this is really gone. We'll remove it from the index. But the process kind of after we've confirmed that the result code is like that depends a little bit, and it can definitely take a few days for that to kind of be visible in search, or rather to be removed from search.
And the 418 is more like a 404 or 410.
The 418, what's that? The teapot, right?
Yeah.
We treat that as a kind of a generic 400 error, so we treat that more as a 404. So if your page goes from having content to showing a teapot, then it might take a few recrawls for us to actually drop it out.
That only indicates that the website in question is both short and stout.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of a special code. I think the thing to keep in mind is if you're setting up a teapot page like this, if people are linking to that page, then we'll be dropping those links because we don't have anything to index there. So it's a kind of a weird situation in that you can't really build a page rank for your website with a page like that.
Would Google consider that if you don't do a 418? Would Google consider that a soft 418?
I don't think we have any algorithm specific for that at the moment, but if we see this happening a lot on the web, who knows?
But you guys ignore that code, right?
Yeah, I mean we treat it as a 404, the 418.
Okay.
And John, if we've used the remove URL tool within Webmaster Tools to remove outdated content, and the request comes back and said, yes, we recognize this page, we can see that it's no longer there, we've removed it. How often do you need to remove things before they're properly gone? Because I've been removing pages that we believe you're seeing as duplicate on another site for every 2 weeks since the beginning of June. We're now on about the 6th time we've removed them, and every time we search for them, it's still coming up.
I probably need to take a look at that, what specifically you're doing there. So it sounds like it's not on your site, but rather on someone else's site?
No, it was a site, as another site that we owned that we thought might be part of our other bigger issue. So we actually closed the whole thing down.
Mm-hmm.
The whole site is 410. We went as far as moving the domain to another registrar over with someone else, to just distancing ourselves from the whole thing. But the site, when we do site colon, and that site still comes back with 20, 30 results, all of which are URLs that we've definitely removed half a dozen times.
So
and it seems to just be like a cockroach that won't die.
I mean, if this is still your website in the sense that you have it in Webmaster Tools, you can do a site removal request in Webmaster Tools, and that'll be honored, I believe, for 6 months. But if you...
well, it's in there, but it's not verified because the whole thing is gone. So as soon as it returns a 410 and it has no Webmaster Tools code snippet in it, it's no longer verified within Webmaster Tools.
What you could do there is verify it with the DNS method, for example. That's one way you can kind of verify the website without putting any content on there. And once you have it verified, you can do a site removal request, and that's something that'll take out all of the URLs within approximately a day. And that'll be in effect for about 6 months. So during that time, we should have been able to recrawl everything and to kind of reprocess everything, remove those URLs completely. But if you're just doing this on a per URL basis, it's sometimes a bit tricky in the sense that the URLs have to match exactly. And if you submit one URL that's currently shown, it's possible that we have another copy of the content on a different URL elsewhere that we kind of bubble up in that place after your removal request. So that's kind of where you're kind of playing whack-a-mole almost if you're taking out individual URLs. But if you do a site removal request for a site that you have verified, then that will definitely take everything out within about a day.
Okay, I'll try that. Thanks.
Hey, John.
Hi.
It's been a couple months since the authorship images were removed from search results. Was there any surprises about how those results went, or did it just seem as expected? And also, I was wondering, why leave in the authorship images on the Google Plus posts, but not keep them in on the others? So in personalized search, you still see authorship images for relevant people, and then also some page images in personalized.
Yeah. I know the authorship team has been working on that to kind of simplify things and clean things up there. I don't know what the next step will be there. So that's something where they're aware of kind of this discrepancy there and the issues around that. And I don't know how much data we'd want to kind of show there and where the next steps will be taking us there. But I know they're looking into things that could kind of help there.
Yeah, and there's a couple other things where you've got it shows in personalized search results so-and-so plus this, or so-and-so has shared this content. Will we, I mean, any ideas on whether we'll be seeing more stuff like that related to Google Plus in the search, or is that going the other direction?
I don't have anything specific to announce at this point, so it's always kind of tricky with these things where you guys would love to see kind of which direction we're heading, what we're doing as a next step, but we try to take these things and announce them when they're ready, when they're actually live. So I'm sure you'll see when the next steps happen, but I don't have anything specific to announce at the moment.
Alrighty, thanks.
And I know Barry is trying to read my face now, but sorry.
Yeah, John, I noticed that they did catch up with those, because I mentioned to you a couple months back about there was still some no-follow, some follow links in the Google Plus posts, that a couple types of the hyperlinks were still follow, and before a lot of, some of them became no-follow, but it was kind of a gradual process, and it seems to be quite well covered now in that all hyperlinks across the board are no follow.
Okay.
I was wondering, okay, the no follow, when webmasters use it, it gives a message to the search index. These are, not links that, they're either paid or they're not links that we feel we want to pass authority to. But if Google uses it in the Google Plus algorithm, in the Google Plus system, what is the message that is to give in general? I mean, because Google can have those or ignore them. And so I was wondering, is it appears that the implicit message is that, we're not going to give authority to any links. Is it mainly a concern about, spamming and things like that, where, if we just use no follow across the board, then it's on the safe side, like Wikipedia and a lot of big sites have done?
It's mostly a matter of kind of trying to treat user-generated content appropriately, in the sense that we kind of have this platform for you guys to use, for you to share content, share links, those kind of things. But at the same time, we need to kind of take care that those links aren't passing PageRank to sites that are essentially spammy or problematic. And when you write a Google Plus post and you're talking about a business, for example, it's really hard for us to tell, are you talking about this in a good way or a bad way, or are you saying, look at the spammer here? So essentially, we're trying to be on the safe side there and just treating those links within the user-generated content as links that we don't really know how they should be treated. So that's kind of in the sense our recommendations for websites in general that have user-generated content, where if you can't be completely sure about these links, maybe it's best to just no-follow them, so that if someone were to try to take advantage of that system, at least those links wouldn't be passing PageRank to any kind of problematic sites.
Okay, but there's also been the talked about frequently in the past about the we'd like to give more relevance or authority to the persons that are well known, relevant and authoritative persons. So
yeah,
those don't seem to be going in the same direction with each other.
it's hard to find a balance there. It's kind of tricky sometimes. And this is something where if you have comments on your blog, you probably have the same problem in the sense that theoretically you could be going through and saying, oh, I know this person, he's a really smart guy. I'll make sure that his links are always followed. Or maybe this other person is an expert in her field, and I'll make sure that her links are always followed, and everyone else just has a no follow. And it's really hard to do that even on a fairly small scale. When we're looking at something the size of Google+, it's even harder to kind of go through there and say, well, these links have always been good, or 99% of these links have been good and useful for us. We'd like to pass PageRank for all of these links from this guy that they're posting. So it's something I know the Google Plus team is trying to find a balance there, and I imagine you'll continue seeing things sometimes passing PageRank, sometimes not passing PageRank, and kind of fluctuating there and trying to find the right balance.
All right, thanks. That's good to hear.
Let's take a few more from the Q&A, and if we have enough time, we'll open things up. I'm looking to perform a full site redesign. If I keep the URLs and the content on my page is the same, should I experience any issues with rankings? My concern is I undergo a site redesign, I lose important rankings. If you significantly change your site, it's very likely that you'll see some kind of fluctuations within your site's rankings. So they could go up, they could go down. It's something that's impossible to kind of say in advance. There are things like the internal linking structure, which might be changing for a website, which could affect how we treat those pages. There are other aspects like recognizing which part of the page is boilerplate and ignoring that, which might cause fluctuations in the short run. And yet other aspects around the quality of the site overall, where maybe if you do a complete redesign, we'll think, oh, this looks a lot better than it looked before, and we'll treat it appropriately in the search results. So these are all kind of aspects that come into play. It's definitely not the case that you can be guaranteed that everything will remain the same as long as the URL and the primary content doesn't change. So you're very likely to see fluctuations. If you do a good redesign, then you're probably likely to see fluctuations in a positive way. So that's something where you should expect some changes. All right, let's just open up for questions from you guys since we just have 2 minutes left.
John, do you have any news for me?
Nothing specific, no. But I know the engineers are working on those specific issues there.
And before Christmas, maybe?
I always prefer if things change faster, yeah.
Santa will come.
It's been 15 months.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
And expensive.
I was just thinking, like, I know you can't tell us when Penguin's coming or Panda and all that, and Panda's an internal algorithm, but if Google lets us know this, then the webmasters can all prepare, to make things better, and things can be better. This way, everybody's notified. I mean, one day will that ever happen, where you will announce when Penguin's coming. So get ready, do what you got to do, and if you're not gonna, if you missed it, then you're out. This way, it's fair for everybody. I'm just saying, I'm just suggesting,
Yeah. It's always tricky with the algorithms. I prefer sometimes if we could just give that information to all webmasters so that they can kind of respond to that feedback that our algorithms are giving. But it's sometimes tricky in the sense that these algorithms aren't one-to-one mapping to anything specific on your pages. So it's not something where we could say, for example, the Penguin algorithm thinks your website isn't so hot, that there's anything specific on your pages that you could change or anything specific we could point at, or even anything specific where we'd say our algorithms think your site is kind of overall lower quality. But,
I'm just saying this so nobody points fingers at you guys.
Yeah.
You know, in the long
I don't
run.
think that's
So
ever
this
going to
would be
not
one-
happen.
Yeah, I think
I'm
we
just
might see
suggesting
some
that,
changes in that regard, but I'm not 100% certain, and I can't guarantee anything there.
Cue Josh's comment about PR. Go, Josh.
I have to run. There's someone waiting for the room here, so I'm very sorry. But I'm sure you'll be in one of the future Hangouts, and we can follow up on that.
Oh, I'll be there.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, John. Thanks.
And hope to see you guys again in one of the future Hangouts.
Thanks, John. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks, John. Great show.
What comment about PR? What was I supposed to say? Oh, he left. Damn.